Okay, welcome back to yet another episode of From the Writer's Desk with Penguin Random House India. And I have another Booker winner with me today. This is Shehan Karunatilaka, the author of the book that won the Booker Prize for 2022, The Seven Moons of Mali Almeida, which is a copy that I have here right now. Welcome, Shehan.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Penguin office. How has this journey been for you?
No, it's been a long journey, lots of ups and downs, and quiet periods of terror, and then periods of triumph as well.
For us in particular, it's been quite a long journey because we published this book in January 2020 under a different title, and it's taken a long time for us to get here. So walk us through some of the ups and downs along the way.
So we did have a global pandemic, so I think that put us, remember that one, so a book came out just before that, and we struggled to really find a publisher outside of the subcontinent and ended up doing edits, and edits turned into surgery, which turned into rewrites, and it was 2 years of not knowing when the book's going to be done. Every time I think it's done, we get more notes, but finally after 2 years, came back with a new title and a new cover, and then the Booker long list happened, and then everything changed.
How did that, walk me through that moment? Because Sri Lanka was in crisis when the long list came out. And I remember when I phoned you up to congratulate you on the long list, you were like, well, actually, I just got petrol yesterday, and that feels like an even bigger accomplishment. So it's
that was, I was only half joking there. So we were, 2022, everyone knows what a turbulent year it was. And the book was done, and I was in Iowa starting a new novel while Sri Lanka was imploding. And so July, we were part of the nationwide protest that everyone saw, that sent the president fleeing and everyone storming the castle. So we were part of that, but then the reality after that was petrol queues, shortages, no gas, and so it was during this time that the news happened. Wife was in a petrol queue for 4 days. I was taking the kids to school, and we got this Booker long list good news. And it was quite surreal because obviously it's great news, but you're worried, you're more preoccupied what's happening in the country. But then just step by step, and I thought, okay, at least this book is now going to get reviewed and read at least, and then made it to the next round, to the short list, and then we're like, okay, let's pack our bags, go to London and be part of this circus. And of course, you don't expect, you're happy with what you get. So I was happy with the short list. I thought, okay, this is good, and then it escalated when my name was called out. And since then, it's been pretty relentless. I haven't done much writing or spent much time at home. I've been traveling around, signing books, doing interviews, talking. But it's great. This book has, from 2020, when we were unsure if it would be read outside the subcontinent, now it's being translated into 26 languages. And
26?
That was the last count.
Amazing.
Yes. And,
is there a Sinhala edition?
Yes, so the Sinhala one is being worked on. There's a Tamil edition happening on a few Indian languages, but it's coming out in Russia and Ukraine, in China and Taiwan and Brazil, and this is quite bizarre to me.
How's the response in Sri Lanka been?
So when the news came, there was a lot of jubilation because look, we've had a tough year, and so it's like when the cricket team won the Asia Cup, suddenly okay, Sri Lanka has won this big prize. It took a while for the books to arrive to Sri Lanka because of the economic crisis, and so I don't know if a lot of people have read it, but there was a lot of happiness and love pouring my way, and my emails were clogged for a while, and still are actually. But I think now it's been a few months, and people have read the book and responded to it, and I think there is a lot of good feeling. There's obviously there'll be people who object to Sri Lanka being portrayed as a killing field. Not that I made this stuff up, but I think overall the reaction's been good, and I think what I found heartening is a lot of young people who were born after '89, the period of the book, are now engaging with, reading up about 83, 89, reading about their past and asking questions about those things. So it's been great.
And the book basically opens up in the afterlife. So I have to ask, do you believe in the afterlife?
Well, I'm not going to conclusively say anything because even after extensive research on this, I realized that no one knows anything, and I'd say, look, I've never seen a ghost. I went to haunted houses, I visited clairvoyants, I looked around. I don't particularly want to see a ghost, but I'm not going to say that there's no such thing as ghosts, that there aren't spirits hovering around this room, watching us speak. Who knows? But yeah, I'm a skeptic mostly, but I'm not going to be arrogant enough to say that I know everything and there's definitely no afterlife and no ghosts.
But where does that opening image then come from? That whole thing of this guy standing in like what seems to be like Dante-style purgatory. Where does that opening image come from?
So I did read Dante, and one book I particularly remember was David Eagleman's Some, it's called 40 Tales from the Afterlife. It's a very thin book, and it's just his imagining of different afterlife scenarios. So I went to literature, I went to the religious theories, to Buddhism, to Hinduism, to the Judeo-Christian theories, and I had to, because the conceit of the book is that a dead man is solving their own murder, so I had to visualize what the afterlife looks like. And for me, I took on all these different theories, but for me, a Sri Lankan afterlife was not a peaceful place where all your questions are answered. No, it was a place of chaos. And it made sense for me that Sri Lanka is full of these restless spirits and also we all know what a South Asian bureaucracy is like. We all experience that. So the idea that ghosts are just these people who are waiting to get their visa stamp to go to the next realm, but haven't got the right documentation and are hovering around, whispering bad ideas into people's ears. It was absurd and humorous enough for me to be interested in, but also I thought it had a deeper truth that maybe this is the explanation that for why Sri Lanka has had such bad luck over the last few decades. Maybe our afterlife is as disorganized as our reality, and that's why we have all these catastrophes happening to us. So that's where it came from. It took a while though. I mean, it didn't come all fully formed. I had to kind of world build and think about what, if you are a ghost, what are the rules, how can you travel, and how can you communicate with humans or mortals or not. So this was all and this is why the book took so many years to kind of figure out where it came from. But this idea of the afterlife as bureaucracy, I've seen it before. It's not an original idea, but I thought I'd put my Sri Lankan spin on it.
Speaking of a Sri Lankan spin, your first book was about cricket. And I know that you're a cricketer or were a cricketer.
I was a lapsed cricketer. Okay. I play in the backyard with my son now, and I'm trying to teach him the dark arts of Chinaman bowling and left arm spin bowling. But no, I was a casual cricket fan, and I became an obsessive for a few years while I was writing Chinaman. And I don't watch that much cricket these days, but I got roped in to write a film about it as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so Muttaya Muralidharan, the great Sri Lankan bowlers, biopic 800. I believe it's being edited at the moment.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So it may be out later this year. So one more cricket piece of writing from me, I think. Maybe, I'd like to say it's the last, but who knows. But yeah, look, in Sri Lanka, as in India, you can't escape cricket. No matter how bad the team's doing, it's still a national obsession.
So I know you used to be a cricketer, and I think you used to be a musician.
I don't think I was ever a musician. I think I played rock music, so I knew like a few chords and made a bit of noise. Perhaps now since the pandemic I've become a musician, in the sense I taught myself piano, I bought myself a drum kit, I got 5 guitars, and I still make it part of my writing routine. So now I aspire to be a musician and actually learn how it's done.
But as your editor, I have to ask, can I expect a rock and roll book from you now? I've got the cricket book, I've got the photography book.
Maybe. I did a rock and roll short story in my collection, so that's there. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Not next, but there could be a music book happening.
And there's an advertising career in there as well. So is that also something that you think is going to make its way into your writing?
That could. I don't want to give too much away, but there's advertising story as well, and advertising has plenty of absurdity and chaos for me to write about. So that could be a longer project. Yeah.
So as a guy who works in advertising, you're used to writing for a client. So a client gives you a brief and then they give you feedback and you're like writing for a particular kind of purpose. Whereas this is a little bit more free flowing. How do you transition between that kind of like writing for a brief and writing because the spirit has taken you somewhere?
but I still use the same tactics. So I still give myself a brief when I'm writing a story. That I think in advertising you have to distill the idea down to a sentence or 2 sentences. So I still keep that discipline. Sometimes, you might just write, if it's a short story, based on an image or an idea. But then when you're editing, you think, okay, what's this thing about?
Yeah.
And so and also each piece has its own voice. So the voice of Chinaman, the voice of Seven Moons, the voice of each of the stories is different. And tone of voice is a big part of advertising campaign. You talk differently depending on your target audience. So I still maintain that when I'm doing a piece, I think, okay, what's the voice of this? What's it trying to say? What's the purpose? And I do bring in that discipline from advertising as well. But yeah, I think you don't have a client, but I suppose the editor and the publisher ends up being the person who gives you feedback and notes.
Yeah.
But I do like the restrictions. I think when you have it, if it's too free-flowing blank page, write about anything, you end up paralyzed. Whereas if you put the parameters for yourself, then it focuses you and the writing's better. So I can't, as much as I diss advertising and I've cursed it during my time, I think I owe it a lot in terms of the craft and the discipline.
Yeah. But that also kind of begs the question, right? Which is, what do you like when reviews happen? Like, let's say there's a review that you disagree with. Is that conversation still going on in your head, like the way you're reaching out to a readership or an audience in some way or the other?
Not really. Now I know it's a lot of writers say they don't read their reviews, and I don't think all of them tell the truth, because I get the Google alert when there's stuff, but there's been such a high volume of stuff that I just skim through. I don't reread old interviews. I haven't even watched my first speech even once. I know.
Really?
Not even once. Though I started watching it. I was
Shehan, I've watched it 100 times.
Yeah, I know a lot of people watch it. I try, and maybe in a few years, but I watch it. I'm like, I was there. I remember what happened. I don't. So yeah.
Wait, are you telling me you didn't prepare your speech?
No, I had some notes in my pocket.
Okay.
I had my notes in my pocket.
And the Sinhala bit, when you had to go into talking in Sinhala to the audience, was that planned? Did you expect to do that?
Yeah, so I thought, well, look, you go in there, any award show, 1 in 6 chance. So I went in there expecting that I'm not going to win. But you don't want to make it up on the spot. Right? You're after a few glasses of wine and the camera's on you and you have to say something. You don't want to make an idiot of yourself. So I had some notes. The Tamil, of course, because I'm just learning Tamil, so I did practice that. I got my Tamil teacher to just make sure, I don't know if I did a great job of it, but make sure my accent was right and I was saying the right things. The Sinhala, I speak Sinhala, not as fluently as my English, but so I just kind of said that. But I want to speak in all 3 languages. Answer to your review question is, I do have the moment though, and I had it with both books, that and you've edited it for so long. The first one I had to rewrite it and edit it, and so when it's done, you sort of think, okay, I've done my best, it's going out there. And now I have no control over whether it's read, whether it's bought, whether it's liked, and so it's easier said than done. But you have that moment where you say, okay, it's done, there's nothing I can do about it, I hope someone likes it. And so I kind of stay in that frame of mind, because now, okay, someone gives it a bad review, what can I do? It's not like I'm going to go back and rewrite the thing.
So you've let go.
Yeah, and I don't read too many of them. I'll skim through it. It's been predominantly positive. Say on Goodreads, mostly positive, but then you get a few people who just don't get into it and say, I started. And this is fair enough, a book doesn't have to be universally liked as long as there's enough people behind it. So
I can't imagine there's much more validation a person can get than the Booker Prize. So
yes. So, but now I think it's none of my business what the book does. It'll. Let's see, once the hype has died down, let's see how it is seen in a few years and how it's remembered and all that. But I think as a writer, you just have to go back and write your next one and leave this to find its own way in the world.
Well, I cannot wait to read your next one. Congratulations once again, and thank you for joining us on From the Writer's Desk.
Thank you very much, Marcy.